Welcome back to another video. In this video I build Mother's Heart. Now unfortunately the state of the build is unfinished because I moved house and so I can't do any more building for a temporary amount of time. All of the main structures are finished, it's just that there's a few extra details like the footpaths and campfires that still haven't been built, and a few bridges within the village as well. But for now this is the finished build. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get on with the episode. Anyway, so to start off with, there was just a bit of cleaning up around Mother's Heart that I had to do. For example, just getting some of the trees and rivers in that went there, in preparation for building the bridges and the entrance that leads to Mother's Heart. This part's pretty boring, so I'll probably just skip ahead since it's just mostly placing in some rivers and waterfalls. But anyway, let's get on to the bridges. And as always, you can just skip to 11:05 if you don't want to watch the building and just want to see the final build. To start off with the bridges, I did a bit of terraforming to the area, just so I can get the basic shapes in place. And I started just marking the general shape of the bridges with spruce slabs. It's quite difficult to get them perfect because the angles of the bridges are often hard to build. Moving on to the third and final bridge, this will lead into the gateway that lets you into Mother's Heart. And that's the general shape of the bridges here marked out. So I'll just do a bit of cleaning up and then I'll get onto the detailing. Moving on to the detailing here, I started off with the entranceway to the bridge, which is just kind of a little gate looking thing. The side railing, in my opinion, it kind of looks ugly in the final result, but it's mostly just because it's kind of hard to build with Minecraft's scale. And now that I've got that bridge pretty much done, I just repeated the process to the other two bridges in the entranceway to Mother's Heart. Continuing on, I started to build the entranceway, which consisted of two towers that mostly just the same design that I'd already used earlier. But since they were on a 45-degree angle, I couldn't reuse the design I'd already built because the world at rotation scuffed them too much. I've had to play around with the scale a bit since it was weird building on a 45-degree angle. Once I could finally get the right scale, I just copied the same design that I'd already built basically. Building the roof was also quite confusing on a 45-degree angle, but I eventually got it right. And once I'd got that tower design done, I just built up some extra details and then I could copy it to the other side. and the only thing to do now was just to finish cleaning up, and then I could finally move on to the village. Much like I did with Mother's Cradle, I just started marking out the general shapes of the buildings, until I realised that almost all the buildings were the same as the ones I'd already built from Mother's Cradle, so eventually I just decided it would be more efficient to just copy and paste them down and not waste my time building a layout. Looking back on it, I would have built a layout because some of the final building positions ended up being a bit strange. It's nothing I can't just go back and change though later if I really don't like it. Since not much interesting actually happens apart from me just copy and pasting buildings, I'll just skip ahead to the next part. So I stopped playing for 2 months, kind of on accident. I might have just been burnt out there realising it, but that's part of the reason why it took so long to get this episode out. So if you've watched this far, I just want to thank you, and I hope you might consider subscribing and liking the video, because I put a lot of effort into these videos and I'd really appreciate your support. So I started to build this little structure here. I'm not really sure what it actually is, but my best guess is that it's a hall or something. Anyway, since it's just kind of me speeding through the building and there's not much to actually talk about, I'll return once I finish building this, and then I'll work on the Matriarch's Lodge. The Matriarch's Lodge was by far the biggest building I'd ever built so far, and also the most complex structurally. So I just started marking out some of the basic shapes with some coloured concrete. The Matriarch's Lodge by far has probably been the hardest thing to build so far in this series, just because of how big and how many different shapes there are to build in it. But it was also the most fun because of this complexity, in my opinion. Much like I did with the last building, I'll just kind of speed through this and not talk. So now that I thought that I've got all the houses done, I just got started with some extra details, starting with this little stage. And after getting that done, I just moved on to the footpaths that lead through the village. However, I was doing this in-game, I started to realise that there was a house that I missed somewhere along the way, so I just went back to build that. I started doing that by just clearing some land for the house to be placed on. And I'll just stop talking so you can watch the building. Similarly to what happened with Mother's Cradle, I somehow lost some footage, so here's the final preview.